Roll call, please.
President Wheeler,
Present by Zoom remote.
Commissioner Lang, Commissioner Raymore,
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Reader,
Present.
Vice President Walsh,
Here.
Commissioner Weber,
Here.
and Commissioner Green.
Here.
Folks, Commissioner Lane just called me and said that she's going to be running a few minutes late, but she will be there.
Thank you. So before we approve the agenda, can I get a motion from someone to allow Jennifer, who we hear speaking and seeing, to participate remotely tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
We did roll call.
Oh, roll call for that. Can I get a roll call, please?
Okay, Commissioner Greenfield,
Sorry, I let you go.
Commissioner Greenfield, Commissioner Raymore, yes, Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Vice President Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
and President Wheeler.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you all.
Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Now, this is without the board policy manual review, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. We won't be actually, because it was sent so late, we won't have it
Right.
to approve this evening.
Do I roll call to approve the agenda?
Yes.
Yes. Can I get a roll call?
So are you,
So,
Is
but
the
we don't
agenda-
need to change the agenda. We can just leave that on there when we get to it. Yeah, we can just talk briefly about scheduling a meeting or what we want to do next, but we just won't be approving anything tonight.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Vice President Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Wheeler.
Yes,
So we're on statement of visitors. Is there anyone who either on they can still talk on the Zoom, right? Is there anyone on the Zoom or anyone in the room that wants to make a comment?
They need to raise their hand up too.
Okay, and you can just raise your hand if you're on the Zoom. You seem clear
There are none.
or none? Okay, thanks, John. So we can move forward to staff communications.
The only thing I had this evening for the board, I wanted to introduce our new superintendent of finance. Wolf Pettinghouse is able to be with us here tonight in our in-person meeting. So Wolf, if you want to say hello.
Hello, my name is Will Pettinghouse. Pleasure to be here. Very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of the Lake Bluff partnership. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
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 Finance committee,
We have not met since our last meeting.
okay. Parks and Beach committee, Jennifer, do you want to talk?
we haven't met since our last meeting, but I would like to turn it over to Commissioner Raymore because of our Earth Day, as well as some information about the beach as well.
Did you
Surprise.
Yeah, did you say Earth Day, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, so before Earth Day, like Bluff Open Lands had their Earth Day celebration in the Ravine Park. And we had close to 50 people come. We had cut down some Norway maples. We talked about how those are invasive and we're trying to get some sunlight onto the floor of the ravine. So we had cut them down prior to Earth Day, and we had about 50 people, adults and a lot of kids, bringing out a lot of wood, so a lot of down trees. So it was a wonderful time. We got probably 30 residents walking by thanking us for our work. And we had sent out a letter to all the residents adjacent to the ravine, so it was no surprise to anyone. And it was just a great day. So it was very successful. It was good.
Nice.
As far as the beach goes, let's see. Heather Kerr and I have been meeting with John related to the beach project, and this is strictly at this point about the erosion project. Because the tank is going to, on the South Beach, because the tank is going to be taken out, there really won't be an opportunity for us to do any of the revetment work that's in the AECom report. But we are looking for opportunities to see how we can get that done and do it piecemeal. We have talked a little bit about the rocks on the beach. There's a lot of rocks on the beach and a lot in the water. It's not quite as bad as the North Beach, the old dog beach, but it is there. So we're working, and I know Noah and John have been working on strategies to see what we can do, whether we have a cleanup day to try to get some of those rocks, how we can continue pulling those out and getting them off the beach so that we don't have a pile up with like we have on the North Beach. So anything else to add, John?
I would just add that, we discussed scheduling a Park and Beach committee meeting to talk about that reservoir project, to really go through the details. So now that we have some of the plans from the village and from the landscaper and the architect that's involved with the yacht club, I think it's good timing to schedule a meeting for Park and Beach committee and go through those details.
That's good. Friends of Lake Bluff Parks. We have a meeting next Monday. So I don't think there's anything new on that.
Nothing new. I think the only thing that's the big
Sunrise,
item
Sunrise Rocks
is
is coming up.
well, Sunrise Rocks is coming up in June, I think 11th. And then this will, I believe, might be trustee Brad Adams' last meeting.
Oh, right, yeah,
As he is planning to move
Yeah.
out of state.
yeah, he's transitioning to another land. And then commissioner comments, any facility comments or anything? President's report, Jennifer?
Very quickly, I believe we mentioned this before, but again, there's the initial discussion stages of doing a tri-board strategic plan. So it would be strategic planning with the park district, with the school board, as well as with the village, to see what kind of convergent points that we can discuss for our future. And another note too, I've been answering a lot of emails from folks who I believe have been learning different information about the proposal that's before us. Again, if there's talk about a referendum, a direct mail piece, a website, that's not from the park district, that's from, I believe, an independent group. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware. But again, as emails come in, I will continue to answer those. I believe a number of commissioners as well have been contacted. And as a lot of my time has been spent with both the task force and North Shore Water Reclamation, I don't want to steal that thunder because that's later on our agenda.
Sounds good. I think we can move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any comments? Because we can approve all of that together if there's not any like amendments or comments on it.
Right. And if there are comments on a particular thing, we need to pull that out,
Okay.
approve the rest for the consent agenda, and then address that item.
Do we need to go over minutes, or is that part of the consent agenda?
It's in the consent agenda, so we have to pull it out if you want, if you have some questions.
Yeah, I do. I just made some notes. I just want to.
Okay, which ones are they?
I don't know where the consent agenda.
Okay, it's page 2, and
Okay.
it's number 3.
Got it. I'm on page
So
15.
15 is in probably the March 28th meeting notes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just wanted to kind of an update. Where do we stand with the Lakota group?
Okay, so, all right, we can address that first. The,
Is that part of? I didn't see it in the remaining part of the agenda.
no, it's not, no, it's not in the agenda or in the packet. So, it's a good question. We've had, President Beeler and, Vice President Walsh, myself, have had some meetings. It has taken, about a month, really to try to get an updated proposal, corrected proposal from the Lakota group. So there was some frustration with the speed and the length of time. So we've also meanwhile reached out to PCI, Public Communication Inc., that the Park District has worked with in the past to see if they are able. We have not yet signed the contract with Lakota group. So if PCI was able to just be a little bit more responsive at this time, we were considering, whether we would bring that back to the board for approval and work with them instead. So that's not been completed, but that's kind of what the holdup is there.
Can I expand on that just a little bit?
Sure.
We just thought some of their specialties, like PCI, might be a better fit than Lakota too. Lakota has kind of some redundancies with what the task force is already doing. doing. So we don't really need some of that, and they were charging, a bit for that. And so we thought we could, save money and have a different kind of expertise with PCI, so we'll see what they come back with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that it on the minutes? I know that was just kind of a question. It wasn't, I think we can still approve the minutes. You just had a question about something in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else? Okay, well then, can I please get a motion to approve the entire consent agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Vice President Welch,
Yes.
President Beeler.
Yes.
Well, I think you're live for the finance report.
So this is the first time I'm new to this, still trying to figure everything out and where things go and where they come from. Revenues are still above budget, the month to date and year to date, and expenses are under. That being said, there's a few invoices related to the audit in the amount of about $18,000 that still need to come out. So hopefully by the next bills list or the check run date, all those will come out. So the expenses are going to be tracking upward. Also, as the programs in the summer increases, expenses will ramp up quickly and a lot. We have been filling some vacancies, and I think there still are some vacancies of the programming maybe. So again, personnel costs will go up as well. And I hope that explains it for now.
Any questions? Jennifer, any questions? You good? Just checking in.
Nope, no questions.
Okay.
I have a question or comment. In the past, Wolf, we've talked about and never really gotten a successful resolution, I think, to the possibility of having not only the results, the month to date and year to date results, but to have some idea of how we're doing on on an annual target. Because we have this with the kind of, with the cash accounting that we use. We have this situation where you get a little more revenue in now than you expected, you have fewer expenses than you expected, and then in 2 months you get slammed, over the head, and all of a sudden, instead of the budget looking really good, which it does now, it's turned around, and then in the fall, things change again. And so I would just appreciate if you could look at, how we can also keep track of some kind of target. It doesn't have to be necessarily this detailed, but just almost on an accrual, if you do an unofficial accrual basis almost. And I don't know how difficult that is and how time consuming it is.
I think, again, this is just the sort of preliminary review I've done of the budget and CAFRs and everything else, is that attempts have been made to parse out the monthly sort of budget in regards to revenues. So for example, we don't get all property tax revenues in, if they like space out between all 12 months. So there have been attempts to, and I think it has been done to make sure that the budget reflects the month that we expect the revenues to come in. Previously, in a lot of other in different jurisdictions or our districts or villages or cities, they usually just take the whole amount of the budget and then split it up or divide it by 12, which gives a somewhat accurate picture if revenues were consistently generated on a monthly basis. So I hear what you're saying, and I will just discuss with you on the board to get that done.
And again, how time consuming it is, I don't know. And there's a limit, obviously, as to the number of hours that exist. But it would be useful.
All right.
Would it help if we, looking at the budget, there's quite a bit of variance, both expense and revenue. And we look good, like you said, Paul. If we understood why that variance is there, is it because we did a good job? Is it because we missed on the budget? Is it because we didn't have expenses that we thought we would? Would that help explain since we have our budget more based on what we're expecting each month rather than just the whole budget divided by 2.
You know, I'm not sure, what do you think about that, Paul? I mean, it's getting a little bit more detail. I think the timing is very, you know, it really explains a lot of it, you know. You have, you know, the tax, you know, receipts coming in mainly 2 times a year, but, you know, comes in a little bit in between, but then paddle, it's a certain season, you know, so if you're looking at all 12 months, preschool's a certain season, day camp, you know, so those revenues are just collected. And, you know, I don't know if it's easier to try to take a look at it quarterly, or, you know, what's going to be, you know, kind of the best way to look at that. But I mean, you know, we're happy to change the information in the package or give you a little bit more information if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know how you compare it in terms of targets. Because like, you know, let's say we expect May to collect 40% of the real estate taxes, and it doesn't happen. Somehow, how we can kind of accrue that, and if you're expecting, you know, if it's just, in other words, how do we overcome the timing issues on some of these things? Both expenses are a little bit easier, because you know, if you got an invoice and it came in, you know, the first of the month, and you expected it for the prior month, then technically you put it, you know, in the next month. And then you can always move back, you can always, you know, adjust the numbers. Revenue is a little bit more difficult, there's no question about it.
Would it be helpful to have some type of expected cash flow analysis? Hey, here's our current balance, here's what we're expecting to take in over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. It would seem to me, because you're right, our expenses are pretty well, you know, forecasted, right? The biggest chunk of which is coming from debt payments that we have to pay out mostly in January.
Yeah.
And our revenue comes in piecemeal in, I believe, June and August. So, you know, you kind of, you know, if you're worried about kind of the timing, see our current balance and then our expected future cash flow looking forward rather than in arrears.
And maybe, you know, maybe looking at a quarterly basis makes sense.
Yeah, interim, Rich Rothwell was working a little bit on that, you know, that cash flow, because we know, you know, from January really to May, our lean months, you know, we're not receiving the tax money as much, you know, a little that's coming in late, and then the programming is down, you know, as compared to the spring and summer and outdoor activity. So I know that he was working on that, you know, that cash flow. That's something that, you know, we could bring back and maybe fine tune that, work with the board, and then look at.
So we've never looked at cash flow. So we, you know, we approved something. Sure, that's $100,000. But we've never actually, I mean, we've assumed the money's in the bank for it, and it has been.
Mm-hmm.
But we've never really, it's never been part of, to my knowledge.
No, just part of the budget, so part of the annual, you know, picture in the budget, but not really tracking it on a regular basis. So we could certainly work on providing that information.
And then maybe, you know, look ahead with revenue, or try to smooth it out on a quarterly basis in terms of, you know, okay, the money doesn't come in May, but it'll come in June. So the second quarter, you know, you've got April through June revenues targeted. You have to do something for the books. So that's one thing, but just so we see where we stand.
Do an executive summary that was a little bit different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just so we don't get any negative surprises later on.
Yeah, give you a little
You know.
bit better snapshot as we go along throughout the year. Sure, we'll work on that.
So I think maybe we can move on then, start with old business.
We have to approve the,
Oh, we do.
financial,
Okay.
accept the financial.
can do that. Okay, can I get a motion to accept the financial report from Wolf?
So moved.
Great. Roll call, please, Mark.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
Vice President Welch,
Yes.
President Beeler.
Yes.
Okay, now I think we can, Paul, can we move on to North Shore Water Reclamation Reservoir Phasing Project?
Sure, I'll just start off, my, let's see, jumping around, we'll start on page 34 in the packet, with a brief memo. So on Thursday night, the village hosted a joint workshop to discuss this project. It was with the PCZBA, the Architectural Board of Review. We had a few of our Park and Beach Committee members there or on the Zoom call, as well as Commissioner Lane was also there representing Park District with myself and Jim Lakeman and Noah. So they did kind of go through just a lot of information and plans that night, and you can see some of those renderings of plans are in the following pages in the packet. Again, primarily what's going to happen there, the main goal for the project is to install 1 million gallon underground storage for reservoir storage. That will, while doing that, the South Beach area is going to be closed for the summer. They'll start in October of this year is their plan. So the summer of 23, we'll lose that South Beach, the yacht club operation, our youth sailing camp program, which is very popular. It's going to be kind of a tough summer, but as a result of the project, again, going to do a lot of improvements that include new public restrooms on the front of the building, an outdoor restroom or an outdoor shower, enhanced landscaping. They want to make the parking lot more of a plaza area, improve the facade of the building and the generator, so the generator doesn't look like a small prison yard. Just a number of improvements. That will be nice when it's done. It's just going to be a big inconvenience for our operation, for our residents while it's being done. With that, I know Commissioner Lane, you were there. I don't know if you want to add anything to it, or President Beeler, who was also at the meeting.
Sure, I do want to add that this is just a conceptual drawing, so if you want to give any input, they're open to input. So there's a lot of discussion about certain things like the trees and
The mural on
the
the
mural
building.
and even the aggregate fit for the driveway, for the surface, yeah. So again, it's a conceptual, so feel free to reach out as
And one of the
citizens of Jennifer.
No, yeah, I did. No, go ahead, Emily, finish up, please. I don't want.
Yeah, so just, again, it's conceptual, so they're seeking input from the community, so make sure, to reach out, if, whatever which way you feel. So again, just stating it's conceptual.
I was just gonna say, I dialed into the meeting as well, to listen, and seems like there was a discussion about the trees. I don't know where that ended up. I couldn't listen to the whole meeting, but.
It wasn't really settled. I
Okay.
knew there was something like that. And some that didn't think that the trees are going to be able to survive, or that they're going to actually block some of the view of the lake, which is not, ideal either. So that's still one of the things that needs to be discussed. And Commissioner Lane might have missed this at the beginning of the meeting. We talked about scheduling a Park and Beach Committee meeting soon to go through these plans and to get some, to seek more input. And of course, all of the commissioners are invited to be at that meeting when it's scheduled.
My other question is, I know that the participation of the Park District and how we can contribute to the project overall, not only through the cooperation of the construction and all of that, what would our participation be with the new structure? So obviously there'll be new restrooms that we need to look after, right, to take care of.
We would do, yeah, the North Shore Water Reclamation District has asked if we would maintain those, if we would clean and maintain those, which, at this point, of course, we'll bring back the Park and Beach Committee,
Yeah.
but we assume that we probably would do that. We would be able to get rid of the porta potties that are down there and then save the expense on those. And we have staff that are down there, cleaning the restrooms at the North Shelter already, so it'd be part of that operation.
Perfect.
And they did state that they would pay for the capital expenses. That's like a big vocabulary word now going on. The capital expenses will be paid by North Shore Water Reclamation District. Because he described, what was Tom, was his last?
Sort out.
Yeah, he mentioned if a toilet was to break,
Okay,
they would replace the toilet.
okay. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that has come up as well, and that's where, John said, and thank you for making that a meeting that everybody could attend, but we do need to address this through Parks and Beach or maybe even a special meeting. Our input is kind of constructed in an interesting fashion because it really is going to be the village that approves what the ultimate plan is going to be, but this is the time for us to be able to articulate what we like, what we don't like, what we see as being useful. It's simple things such as the tree conversation as to if there are trees that are up there. The proposal for the Lake Bluff Yacht Club, which is going to have an observation deck on a second level, which unfortunately the conversation came up that this overlooks the media filtration for the smell down there. So is that ultimately where you want to have a lovely outdoor deck? And then how is that roof, that is that beautiful winged look, how is that going to cast a shadow on people who are using the beach shelter? So I know that George Russell reached out to John Beeler, and I know the conversation came up right after that meeting last Thursday. We need to have a meeting sooner rather than later, so that we as a board can go over these kinds of conceptual designs and start having some input into how this is going to look.
I was at the meeting until a lot of the comments had gone through. Emily, you suggested that they're welcoming input since this is a public meeting. Are you saying that the input should go to the North Shore Water Reclamation, or is it the village now that they're doing the approvals? Just curious, the best way for people to put that input in.
It's probably really both, but it would also be good if it was, like a concerted voice from, the park district with the commissioners and the committee members.
Yeah, I think that's good for anyone else in the community to
Yeah.
know how to participate too.
Because the board, those two committees, don't they have to approve the conceptual drawings?
They do, yeah, both the PC, ZBA and the Architectural Board of Review.
I was happy that several times they mentioned that it sounded like they would truly be done by spring of 2024.
That's certainly their plan, and which, we know with COVID and weather and everything else, it can still be changed, but that's their plan to be substantially done in order to open the beach in that operation. There may still be some landscaping, a few of things that need to be finished, but substantially finished by spring of 24.
Anything else on that? Any questions?
We're tabling the discussion and for like one voice regarding this for a later date.
Oh, no, we can, or are we?
If you have, if you have things you want, questions or comments you want to bring up tonight, certainly.
Okay, I was just, Jennifer, am I understanding that right? I think you had mentioned something about doing a special meeting, but if we have thoughts, we're all here. I
Well-
think it's better use of time if we could just knock it out now.
If there are things that you see from the plan that you'd like to talk about, we're doing an update right now from their conceptual design that's initially proposed.
Okay, great. I called in for part of it. And I guess these are more like questions than anything. So maybe those people who are there in person can help clarify a couple things. The new yacht structure, is that roughly the same size, or is that a bigger footprint in terms of square footage and height?
I
Well,
can, go ahead.
Well, we were just, I know that that's something that George Russell looking into while we were told at the meeting, was it's basically the same footprint as the compound that they have now. George was looking at that and he thinks that it may be going over. I received some, quite a few notes and markups from George today. I actually haven't been able to go through all of them before the meeting tonight, but that's something that we'll definitely want to clarify that point, whether it's within the footprint or it's larger than what's there.
Yeah, from the initial drawings, it seemed like the observation deck was actually out in front a little bit more, so it's more kind of forward facing than, you know, the structure currently exists. The beach footprint is already relatively small, and, you know, I think we should, you know, at least look into it a little bit more to make sure we're not losing any beach there for those people in our community who don't use the aqua.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, perhaps it can be moved back or moved over the other way. Somewhere.
Yeah,
Well, I
just,
know the space was limited, and then one of the things that they talked about were the trains for the storage underneath.
Mhm.
They have to work around too.
Yeah, there's manholes for the tank underneath that come up that they have to work some that will be within the compound, so they have to work the compound plans around that and accommodate those. But anyway, you know, your point is valid. I think there is definitely, it would be in the park district and residents' best interest to try to keep it within the footprint that it is now and not extend further out.
Gotcha.
Further to the east.
and then I'm also looking at, this is, it's not really page numbers, it's kind of like the second slide down, where you kind of, it's like looking, you know, straight down with a whole bunch of verbiage on either side. Just a question about the, kind of the area between the patio and the stones. I see a bunch of circles there. Are those existing trees or trees to be planted? Or none of the above?
So are you on, can you give me a page number from the packet you see?
L1? No, they're probably, yeah, L1.
So 36.
36.
Sorry, my Adobe's getting a little funky.
That's the 36, okay.
By the
Yeah.
rocks,
That's what they want.
They,
the trees,
okay, they're planting trees here?
yes, they're planting trees.
Okay. Are we then on the hook for maintaining these trees?
Well, that question came up, but wasn't answered during the meeting. Who would maintain those trees? So that's still something that would have to be worked out. Also, how many trees or the location of those trees was kind of a, you know, a point of discussion.
Okay.
I think that's gonna have to be definitely explored a little further.
Yeah.
What their goal, and what's shown underneath that was basically something like dune grass. And the attempt, I think the landscape architect from Tesca's name is Nick. I think what he was saying, they're attempting to try to soften between the armor stone, the asphalt, the brick building, all of the hard surfaces down there. They were just trying to incorporate, you know, a little bit of a softer, you know, barrier portion in there to break that up a little bit. I know there was a lot of concern about the trees though, and you know, how well they would survive and who would maintain them. So that would have to be worked out.
Plus that it would block the view.
That was also brought up. Yeah, that was a
I
concern.
recommended that they push the tree against the building.
Mhm.
Very good point. Those are my primary
Dune
questions.
grass, though, that's pretty.
It is.
It's not
Yeah.
tall.
No, I
Yeah.
think the tree
You
grass is a good
You see a
idea.
lot of
I
that
agree.
rosewood.
Especially
Helps
since
with
there's
erosion,
little
doesn't it?
holes,
Yeah.
like the holes there with the rocks that we're trying to fill in. I
Yeah.
think that's safer than the small pebbles.
Yeah.
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 And I guess my last question is, what type of financial commitment are we looking at as a park district? Either positive or negative?
Pertaining to this project, the
Yeah.
only thing that they've, that's been asked of the park district is that we maintain the bathrooms going forward.
Okay.
I've been asked to participate financially in the project.
So I missed the tail end of the call, but when I left, they were talking, they had brought up the yacht club, showing all the pictures, and they said, you know, that it was like that they had $105,000 budget to replace what was currently there, and they thought this fit within the budget, but then it seemed like there was some discourse to, you know, we're actually not paying for anything. So I didn't know how that was resolved.
So that was resolved by the end of the meeting. Trustee Swarthout had not been informed that the staff had put that in as a line item, the North Shore Water Reclamation staff had put in the 105,000 as a line item in the project. So it is included. So once he became aware of that, he said that they would stand by that commitment.
Okay, great. I left and I was like, oh no, I have to go, but that seems like a piece. I was like,
But to continue on that conversation with what Scott just brought up too, it's reflected in our information, is our lost revenue for that summer.
Right.
Because we'll be losing the sailing lessons. It's going to impact our ability to collect for non-resident fees going down to the beach. We're not going to have a dog beach of any kind. And obviously the South Beach shelter rental. So that is going to have that's something we'll need to go into a little bit deeper, but also present that as to what's going to happen to us fiscally.
Yes, and some of that information is on page 34 of my memo. I did put some notes in there about the revenue that's typically collected for those different programs.
Has there been any discussion about excluding non-resident visits due to the smaller size?
So there has been at staff level. We brought up a lot of things about, concerns and just points of discussion about, moving the church service from the south shelter to the north shelter. And then our ADA mat won't reach to the north shelter. So, we have to use an ATV to, which the church actually donated, to, just transport people. So we can make that work for summer without interfere with, each yoga, different things. So there's a lot of things to work through, which we would bring, again, start with the Park and Beach Committee and work with them on these concerns and then decide whether, are we going to allow, we probably won't be able to allow safely, anybody to take a car and boat down there because the parking lot would be gone. And with only that middle to North Beach area, we're going to have to still leave enough room that a ambulance or a fire truck can get down there. So are we going to allow people to just carry paddle boards, or kayaks if they can carry them down physically for that summer? So a lot of those things that need to be worked through with the committee.
okay.
But no discussion of getting compensated for the lost revenue that we'll have.
No, there was, some discussion of whether, if they were to build these, restrooms and put in that extra capital cost, which again, they don't need, it doesn't benefit their operation, that would help offset the loss of revenue for the park district. But there hasn't been any direct discussion about reimbursing the park district for the lost revenue.
So the bathroom's an in-kind donation because of the inconvenience they cause us.
Right, bathrooms, not
Yeah.
for a shower.
Yeah.
Things that we're asking for.
We can't find a previous discussion with a promise for some of that lost revenue like the outcome did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, definitely we should figure out a bunch of points that we would want to discuss in that meeting even ahead of time, because there's a lot.
There is a lot, and if you want to start emailing us any of your thoughts, before we get to that meeting, we'll try to put everything in. We have pages of notes. We've met multiple times with the Commodore from the Yacht Club and just amongst staff to really start going through a lot of our, concerns for next summer and how we would, still operate safely. So.
And that's probably a pre-meeting before, like a committee of the whole, maybe, right, Jennifer?
I would think so. Yes.
I've started getting quite a few comments from people just when I'm down on the beach about what they were talking about, that Mark McMahon came up and the trees came up. Should we direct those to you to consolidate that information and the beach committee can use it, or should we just direct it straight to the village? Any
It
thoughts?
should probably go through us before it goes to the village so that we can consolidate. But if there, again, let me rephrase that. There are things that we have within our control, which is our suggestions and our recommendations. But if they want to go directly to the village, they can certainly do that because they've got the two subcommittees that have to review all that information.
Can we ask North Shore Water if they can put up, like, because a lot of people go down to the beach, or probably the people that care about the beach, you know, more, can they put up something on their build, you know, on the facade of their building, like in behind plastic, like of these pictures and notes now that this project is happening, to let people know, and let people know that it's their project too, so people aren't mad at the park district?
Right. That's a good idea. I spoke with the executive director, Dave Miller, about doing, public communication to really start getting the word out about what's going to be done and when it's going to be done and how it's going to disrupt the operation. So he agreed with doing that. We even talked about maybe some joint, just public engagement or information sharing between the park district and North Shore, and probably the village as well. So just trying to inform the residents of how their project's going to affect us. But that's probably a good idea too. At least a sign directing them to, maybe a website or something.
And
with
maybe some of the
information.
renderings, just like here,
Yeah.
Here's some pictures, there's more
Yeah.
pictures to be found.
Right.
We did that, at the Sunrise Beach entrance.
Yes,
And when we got that sign up and that mural up,
Yes,
that
yes,
painting, I think
yeah.
it really helped.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
And do something like that.
yeah, I think that, yeah,
And you're right, the people who go down there are the ones.
right.
They're gonna be the ones who are most interested in it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So they'll see it there and then.
You're reaching your audience in an easy
Exactly.
way.
And then they see what it'll look like.
Yeah.
Because, frankly, these drawings, we may argue about trees and is the yacht club footprint the same and so on. But it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it can really make it look a lot better
Will be an improvement.
than what it looks like
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be, it's gonna be inconvenient for people, but I think if they can get something like that, and then North Shore Water Reclamation District project.
Yes,
like you said.
absolutely.
For questions to the Park District, call the North Shore Water Reclamation District at 847.
Anything else? I mean, there's just so much.
Certainly just send us your comments or thoughts or questions, at any time, and we're gonna try to incorporate all that into our next meeting.
So then I think we can move on to the board policy manual review, which then we won't do an approval.
We want, yeah.
Okay. So there was a bunch of information sent out today. I'm sure no one had a chance, or maybe some people had a chance to read through it, but I did not have a chance to fully read through all of it yet. So, yeah, I did too. Okay, so just move on then and kind of.
Yeah, unless, I would say take some time to start looking that over, and then we would talk with President Beeler about scheduling a policy committee to, our next committee to take a look at the changes and discuss them.
So for new business, the Sunrise Beach Pathway Improvement Project update.
Yes, I was going to turn it over to Noah. So since he's not here, he's turning it over to me. That is page 59.
These look like pictures from today.
Yes, those are very recent. That would be hard. The packet went out on Friday, but it does look a lot like that. They, of course, with rain, they're delayed, but almost okay. So the project is actually going well. One of the things that we did do is ask the contractor not to do the retaining wall down by the parking lot. We're afraid that could possibly be damaged as part of the parking lot being torn out and all of the tank, the reservoir being installed, and all the work heavy equipment that's gonna be down there. We don't wanna spend $16,000 and $17,000 on a new retaining wall and have it torn up during the project. So we're gonna hold off on that for now. We're starting with that lower section, so it's from the lower, just lower part of the roadway platform there to the north shelter. And as you can see by the pictures, they're making pretty good progress, at least on the demolition. That's always, you know, kind of the faster part. They're going to tilt that the pathway itself, so it's tilted towards the bluff instead of away from the bluff. So the water's not draining, you know, sheet draining over the pathway and down the bluff. It will drain towards the bluff, and a swale will be developed, just like on the upper. It's on both sides of the path on the upper pathway, but this would just be on that, you know, on the west side of it. So it's going to be, as you can see, we already did the new hand railing and lighting as part of the last year's project. So now this is just fixing up that portion of the pathway. Again, the Friends Foundation has agreed to reimburse the Park District for this project. And I think it's going to be a great improvement and a lot more stable surface to walk on when you're going down to the north shelter there. So it's got some delays with weather, but otherwise it will finish pretty soon. Will definitely be, you know, long before we open on Memorial Day weekend.
Are there things blocking it off down? I didn't go to that far into the beach over the weekend, but I did see people trying to walk up. And I said, it's blocked off up here. I don't know at what point you're gonna get blocked, but don't walk up that way.
Yeah, oh, I don't know if they had caution tape at the bottom.
I don't know, or maybe people just walk through it, I don't know.
They used to, but as of this morning, the caution tape was torn at the top, so,
Okay,
yeah,
Yeah.
they might have torn it at the bottom too.
Yeah.
okay. I'll have our staff to check that in the morning, make sure that that's retied, some new caution tape. Is there any questions? Any other questions on that project?
Have they done anything more to block the access down to the farthest north cell or cove? It's just blocked off. Anything different that they're gonna do?
I'm sorry.
Blocked off where?
I'm not
Oh,
sure
I'm
if I-
sorry, the former dog beach. Are they gonna do anything more to block that off entirely? That access point?
At this point, we just have the split rail fence that's across there, and so that was the plan. It wasn't to do much more than that, but do you suggest that we do more?
No, nope, I just wanted to know, you know, if there was anything that was gonna be there. I mean, obviously, we have to keep that access closed off. So if that split rail fence is gonna be continued, that's what's gonna be there.
Yeah, that's until we're able to do that very end piece, our plan is to leave that in place.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Should we move on to the task force, and does that just go into V3 then, or is that kind of a combined?
No, it's just with the
Task force
task.
updates
Oh,
first.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've had 2 meetings since I last spoke, and we had Steve here, Steve Kraus, the chair. So they've had April 5th was about wetland banking and the comparison between Army Corps of Engineer versus the SMC. And the biggest takeaway from that was the Army Corps of Engineer is able to sell to more versus the SMC. That was the big takeaway. And of course, there's more. That's just a big one. And then on April 19th, they started the workshop of analyzing the data that they've collected. And so there's a couple different requests that happened. One of the first one is we were going to talk about at the committee of the whole was the financial analysis for V3 to do. So they requested that. And then the second one was there was some confusion with the question and how they should approach it. They were doing kind of like a narrative form of answering the questions with, and just trying to figure that. So I said I would bring it to the board to kind of talk about. So I mentioned footnoting to make sure that whatever they say is connected to the data they collected. But again, brought it here so we can discuss.
With respect to your first point about the financial report, is that something that B3 has a better competency than the other firm we were engaged with the group?
Those are two different things.
Well, what, I'm sorry, maybe is B3.
Did you say Lakota, right?
Maybe, I don't even know. Is
Lakota
sorry,
is, yeah.
I misspoke on that part.
Okay.
B3 is the firm who's going to undertake this. Are there any other firms that would potentially be other suitable candidates for this? Can we get to that?
I personally think we might want to look. Number one, I think we need to talk to B3 and see if they feel they're competent to do it. Because until now, they've been given the technical side, but we haven't really approached them. They have something in here about a financial projection, but no details.
Well, on page 61, the management of B3's Blackberry Creek Headwaters Wetland Mitigation Bank and Great Willows Mitigation Bank located in Kane County. So they have, they've highlighted 2 areas of expertise. I was just curious if there are other firms who do this, or if the task force has reached out to anyone.
Yeah, and there was, and the reason that the task force went with B3 was because there was no connection with them being with like Lake County.
Gotcha. No,
And that was the one, that was the
Okay.
reason.
great.
Yeah.
I thought we already voted to hire them.
We did, okay, so, and that was the third part. The third part
Okay.
was the scope of what we hired for. The
Yeah.
reason was that for 3 questions, right? And so that's on the proposal.
Yeah.
And so that kind of changed, because it changed in the sense that B3 was supposed to be analyzing the data from SMC and Hain Associates, the technical data. And B3 was told that there is no technical data, it's just conceptual data. And so when we voted on that, we voted that B3 would be analyzing the technical data. And now there is that's never been done. It's just conceptual data. And so B3 move forward with just doing conceptual.
Weren't they gonna do like hydric soil testing to validate the soil was hydric, that was wetland soil? I thought that was some of that, they were providing some of that. Technical, I thought. Yeah.
That's what I thought too.
Some of it, but most of it was supposed to be from SMC and from the Hain Associates, and they didn't get anything from them. Nothing was provided.
Yeah, what was provided was, as you mentioned, there were more conceptual, work. They were, so they're having to kind of finalize some of that information before they can do their own study to see if the SMC proposal is accurate, basically.
Can you expand a little bit more on what you mean by conceptual in this case?
So they're conceptual, so there's a plan that shows the maximum amount of credits is 77 acres that can be put on the golf course. Right now, that's conceptual. That's not been, that wasn't something that was tested and verified. So that's what B3 is working on, trying to, just kind of confirm that information.
But they're confirming it conceptually. They're not doing it technical either.
Right.
Meaning we don't know if the 177 acres would be.
That's a good question, Ann, because that was our conversation. When this was brought before us to approve V3, it was where we've been pretty much as a board as to, this is good information, but we need to have verification. And that's where we thought the task force needed that as well, in order to be able to finalize their report and their analysis. They needed to have that confirmation from an independent source that what's the maximum amount of acreage? What's the minimum amount of acreage? What do we do, with looking at that? In the conversation that we've had with Steve Kraus and with we need to have the conversation too with V3. It sounds that, excuse me, strike that. It is now confirmed that SMC had a conceptual analysis based on certain maps as to what they thought could be done with bringing wetlands onto the golf course. So there's no statistical data, there's nothing other than a conceptual plan. So what V3 now is going to do, knowing that SMC didn't have anything other than their conceptual plans or drawings, they're now doing a more in-depth analysis, but again, still conceptual. They're not doing a wetland delineation, meaning they're not mapping things out and taking soil samples. They're using hydrology and topography maps to be able to say what, in their opinion, would be the maximum, minimum, how conceptually these could be placed with earth moving and so on. But it's not going to be until a future point where we're really undertaking this as a project that we would have that very more scientific or a more mathematical analysis as to conceptually what could be used totally. Hopefully that makes sense. But again, for me, the word conceptual is very difficult because it doesn't give that specificity that I think we want. But at this point in looking at this proposal, we have to look at, without moving ground, what conceptually could happen. And that's what V3 will be doing for up to $10,000.
And so at what point do we get to a more viable, factual kind of analysis of all of this? Where do we need to be, or what do we need to pay, or who do we need to hire to?
Yeah, and Emily, you chime in too, because we were on this conversation together. For the task force to complete their work, it was said to us that they just need this conceptual so that they can start doing the financial analysis after that, because their analysis will then be, okay, conceptually, if there's 77 acres or 70 acres, whatever it's going to be, then start putting in the numbers as to what could an acre sell at? What if it's a high? What if it's a low? What if it doesn't sell the first year? How many years projected out? So they're going to be looking at all of that as part of the task force analysis. But really, it is conceptual at this point. We're not in, we wouldn't have more hard and fast data until we do the next step, which is sign an intergovernmental agreement with all the right signatories and players to be able to move forward, to really take a look at then that kind of commitment of what are you moving, what are you changing, what are you doing? Their conceptual analysis looks at, where if you just put retention ponds in place, where would that be? If you did wetlands, where would that be? So looking at all those different kinds of options.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you.
So that it's like task force V1, if we move forward with the wetlands, we would have a task force V2, or we would have, something.
We would have to think about like doing a technical analysis and how much that costs.
So
Yeah.
the first contract that we have in our packet, which is February 18th, does that mean they're not able to move forward with this $10,000 agreement?
Well, good question, Sue, because when it was proposed to us in February, the thought was once they got the information from SMC, they would turn it around within a 3-week span of time. They asked, they weren't getting information from SMC. SMC then came back and said, we have conceptual plans. We don't have more technical data, but please use our conceptual plans to go forward. So V3 said, yes, we can do that. We haven't had the conversation yet to know where they are, in working this through, but I understand that they're starting to produce some conceptual maps themselves.
Would it be worthwhile for us to meet with V3 and be able to ask these questions directly of them? And find out if a real technical specification, I mean, it's got to be done at some point. If that's something that should be done now,
I think we should have the conversation with V3 because again, and as a board, we're not afraid to ask. We did say, let's go back to SMC and ask if they would pick up this cost. SMC said yes for reasonable costs. And again, my interpretation of reasonable may be different from everybody else's interpretation of reasonable, but we want to make sure that what V3 is going to be doing for their actual analysis is something that we bring back to SMC and say, is this reasonable? Are you going to pick this up? And also make sure that what V3 is going to be producing is what the task force feels is necessary to complete their report. So I do think that conversation would be a good one with Steve and with V3 and with Emily and the board.
And we're trying to arrange that right now. It looks like Thursday afternoon. We may be able to, shouldn't have that confirmed by tomorrow morning. We can do a Thursday afternoon Zoom call with B3 and Emily and Steve, and we can have one other commissioner on that call if needed.
Has the task force said anything about whether this impacts their ability to finalize what they said they wanted to get finalized by the end of May?
It is a concern that it'll, would possibly cause them to go into June, early June.
Okay.
Instead of finishing up in May.
Which was still within our timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
The board's direction was by the end of June.
Okay, so we're not scrambling to try to put together a contract, get us out really fast to get. Okay.
But isn't there some concern, we're all saying we're using this concept plan. But where did the concept plan come from?
That's another good question. The concept plan came from SMC with Hay and Associates, their analysis from maps as to what could be used for water retention with their going ahead, because their project really is water storage. It's stormwater storage. The wetlands, as SMC has said in the task force meetings, the wetlands are in addition to, they're a way to deal with the stormwater management, but their proposal is stormwater management and how is that going to be addressed? So they put together this concept of here's land that could be used either here on the golf course or with the naval base to accommodate their need to store 40 acres of stormwater. And then from those maps, they had the proposal of they believed they could have up to a certain acreage. V3 is the one who's going to say, based on that same map analysis, conceptually, you could have up to X acres of stormwater management that could be converted into wetlands. So it may be, again, shrinking larger, we don't know until V3 comes through. But the task force does believe they need this information in order to be able to do, boys, am I going to use a contradiction in term, accurate hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Emily, what was the second part of your question or task or takeaway that you had? Something that we were going to discuss. I think it was something other than B3.
Oh, the approach. They were when at the workshop, they were trying to figure out, did the board want answers in a question, or how did they want, or is it more, at the end of the day, told them to do a report, and then they're trying to now, trying to figure out how to put all that data together. And so, does that make sense?
So they're putting together a report. They're asking whether or not it should be more a finding of facts or a recommendation. That's how I'm understanding it.
No, it was, there was like questions, just to remind everybody, we did the remit, and then I asked everybody if there's any other questions to make sure that get answered, give your input, and then also I shared that with them at the first meeting. And so they were thinking that they would need to answer each question verbatim. And so just kind of coming to,
Okay,
you guys to see how to address that. I mean, it was really kind of like a guide, those questions of what we thought would be necessary. Do you want them to answer them and then make sure that they're just footnoted in the report? Or do we just want them to just do the report and make sure that the part that we, had talked about, the risk and benefits are in there, making sure that those things are part of the report also.
Because our original agreement that was approved was in the park, just in the board, was
Yeah.
pretty simple. It was like
Yeah.
2 questions.
It's
right?
like, yeah, do you want to make sure those are in there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's 2,
right. But the rest of it was just trying to
Define-
help them
right.
determine how they approach it.
right?
Okay.
And so making sure that those things are in the report, right?
And then expand if they need to or should.
Yeah. So that's what I'm coming back to. you guys.
Yeah. I think,
Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense, right? Those are the questions, we ask them those questions is, that we we're going to need answer to help facilitate answers to the big questions. So anything that they can, use to come up with those answers should be footnoted, added, and referenced in some way.
Anything else?
So what do we do about the financial analysis?
Well, I did, as the task force goes through this, I'd like to have them have the conversation with the board as well, to make sure that they have the financial information from us about, we're talking about risks and benefits on both sides as to what it would cost for us to look at this, what we have to do from a staffing side, from what we have to do from a management side. I think that in order to be able to have them thoroughly vet their finances, they would have to have that conversation with Wolf, with the finance committee, Scott, and so forth, to be able to make sure that the information is consistent on both sides.
But do we want to have a company like V3 go through that analysis? Are they the best ones? V3 or someone similar to V3 or more qualified, let's say, than V3?
Yeah, I think what they're going to do, Paul, is continue conversations with all of the experts that they've had to date that could weigh in on that kind of information. So they've had a wetland bank development specialist. They've got V3 who will also look at this. So all of those people who come from different parts of building and maintaining and selling off wetland credits, they touch bases back with each one of these sources to kind of strength test their information, if I can call it that. But I think we're like the fourth branch that would need to be tested as well. So hopefully, if and Emily, if that's the way you understood it as well, that's the impression that I got from Steve as to how the task force is putting this together.
Yeah, but they also requested to have V3 do a financial analysis.
Right.
Yes, to say that from the construction, from the build, from everything else, their analysis from what they've had, with the practical experience of this, to put this all together.
Which might be more money to get that financial analysis.
Correct. They may ask for more money than what they put together in this initial proposal. But we don't know yet. We haven't had that conversation with B3 to find out what they would have to supplement this.
Okay. I guess the question would be, would the board be okay if more money was needed to do the financial analysis?
How much? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I know, but
Right,
so
so-
this is a process, right? It's not-
Right.
And so making sure that we're moving forward
Yeah.
to collect the
right.
data.
Right now, it's up to 10,000, or not to exceed. So, they've not asked for more money, but you would have to approve that. If they, needed, they thought it was gonna take an additional, whatever, $3,000, they would have to, request that, and the board would approve it before we signed off on it.
But that was not the scope of the original contract, was for a financial analysis.
So far, the SMC is paying for V3, right?
Yeah, they have agreed to
Yes.
reimburse the park district for the up to $10,000.
early on in the discussions, and I think if we were to go through the agenda, the minutes from the meetings early on, before the task force was established, we discussed the point that it was likely that a proper financial analysis would have to be done by an outside consultant.
Right.
That putting everything together like that is
Yes.
really very complex.
Mhm.
And you got to go to people who do it,
Yeah, I agree.
who are in the middle of that. So and that's why I think going to someone, whether V3
Mhm.
feels qualified to do it,
Mhm.
something we can ask and get their background on that. But there will be a firm out there, John Ryan's firm. He basically said they're not qualified to do that.
That's right. They're just being.
They work on the mitigation banking side, but not on the cost side of creating and maintaining the wetlands.
So we'll have a discussion with D3 on
Yeah.
their capability and interest in doing the financial analysis piece and then what they would charge us, or maybe the SEC would be interested in helping with that cost as well.
Or is this when we ask the task force to give us what they have come up with? And then if it looks like, if it comes up that they have absolutely nothing good to say about having a wet bank, and we're going, well, why would we do this? Do we really want that financial analysis?
I think.
Or do we assume that we will want to validate the numbers? Is that what we're saying? Validate the numbers that they've come up with? I guess
I don't think that the task force is capable of running that kind of analysis on their own. I'm just looking back at the remit right now, and we have assigned the task force to this. The task force may also conclude that a professional financial consultant should be contracted in order to best arrive at realistic estimated costs for these proposals. This recommendation will then be presented to the board for review and action. Yep.
So can we agree that at your meeting, if it's Thursday, that one of the questions to V3 will be, is this something, are they capable of doing a full financial, it's essentially a P&L analysis, right?
Would imagine that it's like, hey, Stormwater Commission has, this, it's, conceptual, we have this conceptual, and based on this conceptual, we either can provide you a financial analysis or cannot.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's rather cut and dry, but see Thursday.
Yep, okay, sounds good.
More on that, or is that good? And table till Thursday?
Emily, do you think we've adequately answered
Yes.
all the points?
Thank you.
No problem.
Pool repair update.
Okay, back to Noah. All right, so that page is 69 in your packet. So there's a list of the items that have been planned, budgeted for, planned, and are being done this year to get the pool open on time to the surge pit. Number one item, of course, was budget of 40,000. That came in at 24,850, and that's been completed. So that work is done. We're ready to go. And that really was kind of the biggest component that we were concerned with. The rest of these items, the only one, to my knowledge, that's not finished is the pool liner. It's, I believe, scheduled, and that was a price. We paid half of that price basically as a deposit with the same company that did the repairs on the liner last year. So that will be done, from my understanding, in the next couple of weeks. And Jim, what was the target date for getting water in the pool and being ready for your staff to train?
May 16th.
May 16th. And it sounds like we're on track for that from everything that Mike Noah told us, right?
Yeah, it sounded like that weekend it should be heated and ready to go for Monday. We start training on that week.
Okay, so then, just from our discussion with facility and programming committee, in, doing some potential larger repairs or renovation than this, that would be probably in the fall of 2023. So we need to get through the next couple of seasons with the pool basically operating the way it is. So that's why these things were included in the budget. All of these items were budgeted for this year. And as you can see, overall, we're a little bit under budget with the work that's been done or is planned to be done. So, barring anything else coming up, we should be in pretty good shape to open up the pool and open up on time.
And there's confidence that with these repairs, it will last through the
Yeah, the
next
balance
summer.
tank. Is Micah happy with the balance tank repair?
I think he is as happy as Micah can be. It's always like an addition of this old house, because there's a lot of challenges with a now almost 48-year-old facility. But I think he was pretty happy with the quality and how solid that felt. I know that he got down in there when they were just about finished and still felt that, it was a little bit loose, and they were actually went in and did some additional bracketing to, it's good that he's heavy enough to, really test it out when you get down in there and, climb around. So they actually went back and did some additional brackets and beefed it up a little bit more, but I think he's pretty happy with the outcome of it now.
It would be hard to have half a beach and no pool in 2020.
Yeah.
So it's just good to make sure that everything's all set.
Well, that's.
You just gotta think ahead.
It's a scary thought, but a good point. So other than that, Jim, do you want to do a quick update on the pool as far as your staffing levels? and plans?
Sure, yeah, actually, again, a lot of the parks and rec departments across Illinois is really struggling hiring staff. We're very fortunate. We're just about full for our lifeguards and our aquatic and beach staff. I know our sailing manager just got done doing interviews. I think he's ready to hire all our sailing team. Camps is right now what we're working on for camp counselors. As Commissioner Greenfield mentioned about projecting financials, I will say we are doing really well with camps. This is the best we've ever done since I've been here. We're at, as of today, gross revenue of $378,000. We do have to pay back the pool $25,000 because we're bringing back swim lessons. So our target is 370. So we need to hit 395. I feel pretty confident this early that we can hit that projection, if not a little bit better. But we will be full. I mean, we've already shut down, closed all registration for 3 of our camps, which is a great thing. We've created a wait list. We can't really take anybody in, only because not because it's COVID, just because of the facility that we have here and where we're going to put all these kids. So this will probably be the biggest year on the amount of kids that we serve per week. So we're really excited about the summer. We are struggling a little bit with our tennis program, trying to find instructors. That's something we are working on. But we are running right now, just another quick update, a girls basketball program. It's been kind of a main focus of ours over the last 3 years. And we have, I do believe, 35 girls in a 4-week program. So we're really excited. Things are going well right now, knock on wood. Preschool, again, we're looking at filling the 5 classrooms, right? A little over 90%. And we'll probably bring in an additional $40,000 of revenue by the end of the year if we can hold on to that amount of students throughout the remainder of the year. Okay.
Good job. Great news.
Yeah. Any questions?
You said you feel fortunate in hiring. Did we have to raise what we're paying people this year in order to get people in, or?
In some areas, but in some areas we didn't. So there should be a balance on hiring. But we did budget for $15 an hour. So on average.
Mhm.
So we do have some that are over that, some that are under that. I think we're going to be good.
Jim, what would you say that average was in 2019 pre-COVID?
It was anywhere, average was about 11, probably even lower than that, maybe 10.50.
And now it's 15.
And that's just trying to keep up with our neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
we have, I
We
think,
have to.
Glencoe Park District is starting at 14. Everybody that walks in the door, the Glencoe Park District. So, and this is our, he's talking about our average. So it's very difficult and competitive to get them and keep employees, especially, on the seasonal part-time staff. But Jim and really Tina, our HR is just fantastic, and some of the other aquatic staff, and just, working on the recruitment, for, well, not only the pool, but the camp, even our preschool instructors. We're now finally filling our full-time positions. We've hired 2 full-time park maintenance workers, well, 1 full-time, 1 regular part-time. Our administrative assistant, finance, we've made 1 promotion at the front with our guest services manager. So we're in pretty good shape, but it definitely takes a lot of work.
And I think we had talked about a while ago, the various, perks and different things that we could do in order to retain and, get people in the fitness center and various things that aren't going to cost us money, but to offer value to people. That's all happening.
It is, and you supported that, the board, we brought that to the board back in December, you
Right.
supported doing that for the staff. So we've extended that. Those benefits such as the fitness center or feature pool passes or different things like that. We're working on some other, like just morale boosters and other benefits for the employees. But one of the things we're trying to, and one is starting an employee newsletter and reminding them of some of those benefits that are available to them that have been approved by the board.
And are those extended to summer staff as well?
A certain level of benefits. There are typically, you work so many hours, you get that, there's different levels of benefits. So there are a certain level of benefits that are extended to even seasonal staff.
Did you bring back the counselors in training, CIT?
No, we did not bring that back. That was something that we've discussed before. The challenge with the counselors in training, to be honest with you, every time we bring it back, it feels like you're still spending a lot of time supervising them and not the group of kids. So it is discussion. We are talking about, how do we do that? Because we do a pretty good job with some of our specialty camps where we end up hiring a lot of them as counselors later on. Sailing camp is one, Teen Travelers is the other, athletic camp is the other one. We tend to get that same group of kids. It's like a counselor and training program, an unofficial one, but it does happen at that level. Normally what we did last year with Teen Traveler, I'll give an example. We gave a nice discount for a 14-year-old to continue on that program and learn how to be a counselor. Okay. So it was an unofficial counselor in training, but they were someone who registered for the program, but they got like 50% off. So they didn't have to pay the full.
And one of the areas that, we've started to discuss a little bit in-house that some of the other park districts are doing is starting to allow more 15-year-olds to work with a work permit. If they have an approved work permit, then in certain, positions, some of the day camp, some of those, maybe an aquatic attendant or some of those positions they could work, and that will open up, a little bit wider group of candidates. So that's something we're looking into as well.
I know that's one of the things the families like around here. Is, the kids coming to work here, and so how we help them to transition in is always a good thing. So that's a great idea.
The minimum age is 15 to work at the park district?
Right now it's 16.
16.
So we're talking about some of the park districts are doing it with 15 with a work permit. So we're looking into that option.
If that's it for pool repair, that we branched into other discussions. Any community comments or correspondence?
I have no correspondence.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question here.
Yeah. Sorry.
If you're going to address the board, could you step up to the table? There's a microphone there, please.
We can hear you, but that way the people.
You could stand or sit. That's up to you.
Okay, my name is Perry Walcott. I live 115 Central Place, like, well, I got questions about the golf course. I received a kind of a flyer in that street, and I'm here tonight, just sort of identifying some of the thoughts associated with the stormwater detention pond or detention pond. Couple questions. One is, who's on the Park District land use tax? Because that people from Lake Bluff.
Those are, do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Those are all residents of Lake Bluff, of the Park District boundaries, and they served formerly on a land. They were 7 of the 9 members that made up the original land use committee back in 2015 for the Park District.
Is it possible to get the names?
They are posted on our website, and I'm happy to share that with you after.
Sure, okay. Another thing was, will the park district here, will you be able to modify whatever SMC comes up with and said, so you can say, this in fact, we do not like, we prefer it to be this configuration or that. Obviously, stormwater detention deals with the floodplain, and so, they scoop it out, and make it deeper, and pumps. There's lots of gimmicks out there to achieve the 40 acre feet they're after. They can make 1 acre inside and make it 40 feet deep. So, so there's lots of options on how to solve this problem. So do you have the final, or is this probably an iterative process between you and SMC and others?
The Park District has the final say as the owner of the property. Again, we have elected a board that really has that final say unless they, decide to put up for a referendum. But the Park District owns the property and does have the final say on what sort of design and what use of the land is
Okay.
finalized.
What about improvements to the property? Assume that you come up with a configuration for this detention. What about this little flyer thing I got? Talk about walkways, shelter. I mean, it was an unending list of improvements that would come with the property as part of the modification. All those is V3 going to price out putting in walkways, putting in shelters, vistas? Is that part of their contract? It's going to be a burden.
I think we should maybe clarify that the flyer did not come from the Park District.
I don't think it did.
Correct. Okay.
That's more the fact.
Okay, I
that
just wanted to
it's providing
clarify
a
that.
listing
Okay.
of features
Mhm.
that may or may not occur on the property. The question is, you're asking V3 to price it out, look at the cost. How do they look at the cost out?
That would be, part of a process. If the Park District decided to do that, it's not included right now. What those costs would be to develop, those amenities such as raised walkways or boardwalks, gazebos or fishing piers or any of that. That you would work with a landscape architect to and decide what, you would want to have included, and then look at the cost of what that would take to install, and then the cost of what it would take to maintain that in the future, none of which is really covered by the grant to do, the wetland work.
And so really, none of those features are part of the discussion yet.
No, they would have to be factored in and developed after Park District chose, what it's interested in, then you'd have to decide or work with a landscape architect to develop cost estimates for those.
This flyer thing, maybe you all received, I don't know. It was talking about the Park District could receive up to like $11 million. I have no idea where these numbers come from. But assume for a moment that it may be correct. So is it the type of thing that annually the Park District would receive this money?
No, those are one-time sales. A credit is an acre of land. So they're saying the plan could potentially develop up to 77 credits or acres of wetlands, and that times 150,000 an acre would give you 11 million. So that's his top number, but the actual number, you would have to take out a lot of the fees, amenities. The money comes in certain increments, so you can only be It's market driven, so you have to sell those credits. If there's a demand for them, you can start with 20% of those, and then, 30% in another 5 years or whatever, there's certain, so it can take up to 8 to 10 or 12 years to sell all of those, and it's a one-time sale. It's not gonna, after you sell that credit, you can't sell it.
Even though you refer to it as acres, you're really selling acres.
While you're selling, for it's an acre, what's considered for the wetland credit, it's 1 acre of land. It's different from the 40 acre feet of water storage that they're looking for the compensatory stormwater storage. It is, yeah.
Fair. Well, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'm here every day if you'd like to stop by and talk a little bit more about it. Be happy to talk with you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
There's a lot of information on the website, so you have to weed through some stuff, but what the task force has, come up with too. So it's worth, worth looking at, all of the things that they've done.
All right, I'll look at it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone on the Zoom have any comments?
There are none.
Okay. Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Great. Roll call. Oh, yeah, we do voice. So all in favor? Aye. Aye.
No opposed?
No one.
Good night.
Majority rules.
Good night, Jennifer.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all.